Hey there, I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of the website techinterview.guide, and I'm here to help people with career advancement and interview preparation. My live stream on Twitch covers topics such as company research, how to build resumes and cover letters, applying for the job, getting through interviews, and what to do during negotiations. I've coached thousands and thousands of people over the years to get jobs at the biggest tech companies in the industry, and I'm here to help you too. The following episode is taken from a longer live stream event and may contain interactions with other people in chat. Check out the end of the episode for more information. Let's get to it. We had a great question show up in chat that says, I'm wondering what's the best advice on how to bring up salary negotiation with your current employer. If you know that you've picked up more responsibilities and compensation-wise it hasn't been recognized. I've started to apply elsewhere because I feel my value is worth more. It's such an awkward approach. I'm really struggling with how to address it. Fantastic question. As a hiring manager myself, I never want to get surprised where somebody just walks into my office one day and says I quit because I got another job paying me more money. If that's something as a manager that I could have addressed, then I would hope to have addressed it and retain an employee who's got a bunch of knowledge than to lose you to another company and now we don't have you on the team. So my thinking here is you need to have that conversation with your manager and just say, hey, I've been picking up more responsibility. I've been looking at other roles. My market rate should be this. I'm only making this. What can we do to fix that? Because I really would prefer to stay as an employee. And they'll want to keep you on as well. Now, if they say, well, we don't really have budget for a raise and whatever, then, they shouldn't be surprised then when you walk in with a resignation when you do find another job. Sometimes, though, when you walk in with that resignation, they're going to scramble and suddenly, magically find that money that they said wasn't there originally and say, oh, wait, no, just kidding. We can actually offer you that money to keep you here. It's like, well, you told me you couldn't afford that before. Why suddenly now are you able to afford it? Or worse, like typically what I see is someone doesn't talk to their manager. They go get a job. Or a job offer, and they come back to the manager and say, hey, I got this job offer. Can you match it? Can you beat it? And now you've kind of put your manager on the spot where it's like, okay, well, you've thought enough about leaving to actually go get through an entire interview process with another company. And so that's where you kind of start to burn that bridge a little bit. But if you would really rather stay at the company, start having a conversation now and just say like, hey, based on the new responsibilities that I've picked up and inflation and everything else going on right now, I would like to be making this much money. What can we do to get there? And you want to address it as what can we do? So just like any negotiation tactic, it needs to sound like a cooperation between you and me. How can we approach this? Not what are you going to do for me, but how can we make this happen? If they come back and say, well, in order to get you to that next level, we also need to take on this other responsibility too. Like they might have an actual sort of like career ladder of, you get to that next step by doing this. And if you've only picked up some of that responsibility, then maybe they need you to take on like the full responsibility of what that role would be in order to get that promotion. If your company's not not organized, but if they don't have that much structure, then they might just say like, hey, you know what? As you take on these other roles and responsibilities, like we just expect you to kind of do that now as part of your job. You should be getting compensated for that. But it starts with that conversation, and you have to start with talking to your manager about it. Because if you just walk in one day and say, I found another job that pays me more money, so I'm out. Now they've lost a valuable person on their team when maybe they could have retained you. So I'm taking kind of both positions on this, both from your perspective of you want to get compensated appropriately for your role, but also from the perspective of a hiring manager or just an engineering manager of like what I would want to do to try to retain you on my team. So I would start with that conversation where you start talking about what the responsibilities are and how it's impacted your role and how you enjoy doing it. You don't want to give up that responsibility, but because you're taking on this extra level of responsibility, you feel that you should get an increase in your pay. Now, what you need to do is you need to frame that meeting with your manager and say, hey, I'd like to have a meeting next week to talk about my compensation because of all of these additional roles and responsibilities that I've been taking on. That sets them up a week from now to know that you're about to ask them for more money. That's then going to give them the time to go inquire, like, is that even a possibility? Do I have budget for this? If so, how much? Because if you just say like, hey, can we have a quick meeting? And you show up and you're like, I want more money. Like that's the theme of it. They may not be able to do anything about it on the spot. They're going to have to delay and say, well, let me go see if that's even a possibility. Let me go see what I can do. And now you're like, was that just a delay tactic or whatever? Like they legitimately need time to go talk to the finance team and figure out their budget and figure out where they have room to give you that raise, if that's even a possibility for what they have right now. And so giving them a heads up and say, I want to have a conversation in a week about my compensation because of these additional responsibilities. Now they know when you have that meeting that you're going to ask them for a raise. At that meeting, they may still need a little bit more time, but at that meeting, you want to find out what that timeline is going to be and just say, is this something that can happen in a month? Is this going to take 3 months to approve? Like, what's that timeline going to be? Because I want to know that I'm making market rate for the kind of work that I'm doing and the responsibilities that I have. I want to, I deserve a lift in that compensation. It's their job as your manager to make that happen. If they can't make it happen, then they're going to lose you as an employee. And I think a lot of companies nowadays are recognizing that if they don't do everything they possibly can to retain you as an employee, they're going to lose you as an employee. That's just the nature of the industry right now. So by starting that conversation with, I want to have a meeting in a week, then it's going to carry into actually going to that meeting, and it's going to be an awkward meeting. It's going to be awkward. But what I generally tell people is like, keep a notebook. I've got notebooks all over the place, but they're kind of buried right now. But keep a notebook. And as you take on new responsibilities and as you work on new roles and new projects, write all that stuff down. Because when you go into that meeting, you need to really like knock them over with how much value you bring to the team. Like, this is why I'm a valuable asset to the team. I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. I'm involved in this. I can do such and such and blah, blah, blah. And over the past 6 months, I've done this, and I've worked on these things, and I've had this impact. Like, you need to document all, like, you need to knock them over going, yeah, you're an amazing person on my team. You need to do that, by the way, no matter what job you're in. Not just to say like, I've taken on new responsibility and I want to ask for a raise. You can also do this just on a regular, like 6 month, 1 year basis, where you reach out to your manager and say, hey, can we have a chat about compensation? And then walk in with that same sort of list of, here's how I bring value to the team, so that they legitimately know like, oh yeah, this is real. This is something that we actually need to pay attention to. And yes, you are a valued member of our team. Let's see what we can do about giving you a raise. But in this specific case, you know that you've taken on responsibility and you haven't been compensated for it. And so that's something that you absolutely need to have a conversation with. And then from there, you can negotiate a little bit more. So if you say like, what can we do to make this happen? If they do have a structure where it's like, well, you need to also take on this other responsibility in order to get that promotion, which comes with the raise and so on, then talk to them about what's it going to take for me to add that to my current responsibility with everything else I'm doing. Do I need to give something else up in order to take on that other role, to have that now as part of my overall sort of responsibility in this role in order to get that promotion? Or is this just, it's like another thing that I'm going to have to sort of juggle? And then you're going to have to figure that out with your manager around like, what's that timeline going to be? But at that meeting, you want to find out what that timeline is. You don't want to just leave it open-ended and have them say like, oh yeah, I'll find out and I'll get back to you. It's like, okay, can we follow up in a week or 2 weeks? Like, what's the timeline going to be? Like, hold them to a timeline and say, okay, should I follow up with you in a week or 2 weeks? And get it, like, find out from them. And then go back to your desk, or if you're working remote, send them an email recapping everything. Hey, we talked about this. We talked about this as a salary level. We talked about a timeline of a week or two to follow up. I'm going to go ahead and send a calendar invite or whatever for that, so that we can have that next conversation. If I've missed any information, or if this doesn't sound accurate, please reply and let me know. Now you've built a paper trail of, hey, we had this conversation. This is what I recall from this conversation. Is this accurate or not? And, if they don't respond, if you've worded it in a way that says like, if this is not accurate, please let me know. If they don't respond, then, that's kind of them acknowledging that it was okay. Or you can say like, let me know one way or the other whether this is accurate. So they have to respond either way. And if they don't respond in a day, just reply back again and say like, by the way, I just want to recap on that meeting. Were these notes accurate? And get them to give you a written answer of yes or no. You want it in writing so that if that doesn't happen, you can go back to them in a month and say, hey, we talked about this. You said 2 weeks ago that I could follow up with you and this hasn't happened yet. You need to hold them accountable. You need to hold your manager accountable, as awkward as that may be. And if they start dancing around the whole thing of like, oh, I need more time, whatever, it's like, how much more time? Because I'm ready to go look for another job to get paid for what I'm worth. Like, you don't want to be super aggressive about it, but you need to let them know that, you know, like, you're not afraid to go look for another job to get paid what you're worth for the responsibilities that you've taken on. And that's something that they will take very seriously. So that's how I would kind of word those conversations and kind of the timeline that I would follow on that. I'm always happy to help with wording on that if you want to drop by and ask more specific questions. Thanks for checking that out. I hope that you found it helpful. I always appreciate feedback, so please let me know what you think. I appreciate any subscriptions, so please tell your friends and colleagues about it as well. Check out the website techinterview.guide for more information about when I'm live streaming and all of my free content. Drop by a live stream anytime to ask questions or message me privately, whatever makes you most comfortable. See you next time.